Hi, in this video I am going to be setting up my Passport Camel Traveler's Notebook as well as creating some of the inserts that I will be using for this year. I've already printed and cut out each of the pages so that they fit the passport size, and I've printed this on MD cream paper, which I'll be using for this notebook. I am just folding each of the pages in half so that I could begin punching the holes into them, and I've already measured and pre-punched on one of the pages so that this will just be a template that I can use for everything else. So I'm not measuring each and every single page. I just have one pre-punch page that I will just use to guide me for everything else, and that way everything is uniform and it's just a little bit easier for me. I am using an awl for this. In my last video I did just use the same needle that I was using to stitch the book together as the tool to punch the holes as well. Both work perfectly fine. It's just I did find a really cheap awl, so I decided to use that, and it was quite satisfying to stab the pages. I first started off with one page and then decided that's gonna take way too long, so then I just grouped a bunch of pages together and it actually worked. Once I'm done, I'm just arranging all the pages together and making sure that all the holes do line up. So I'm just using the awl again to find the central point, and then using my little clip to hold all the pages together so they're not moving. And now I'm just going to thread everything together. I just have normal cotton thread. I wanted to use waxed cotton thread, but I didn't have a candle. So normally if you don't buy waxed thread, you can just run thread over a candlestick and it will coat the thread with wax. Yeah, I could not find a candle, so I didn't get to do that with this insert. Hopefully the next one I'll get to experiment a little bit more. Here I am just stitching the book together. I made sure that I went through each page to ensure before I stitch it that all the pages were in the correct orientation, because I absolutely have stitched a book before only to then realize once it was completed that actually I messed up and some of the pages were not correctly oriented, so the margins were off. Made sure not to make that mistake again. I am just using regular saddle stitch binding for this, so you literally just stitch from the center point going outwards all the way to the top, and then all the way back into the middle, and then repeat going down the bottom, and then you'll end off in the middle again. It's not complicated, and if I can do it, literally it's so easy. I just tie a knot on the inside so that it's not too noticeable and ugly and it's hidden on the inside, and now we're done. There is a little bit of an overhang and I don't have a guillotine, so I am using my X-Acto knife to just trim off the side. I did make a mistake and screw that up, but that's okay. It's not too noticeable, and I'm just using a nail file because I could not be bothered to look for sandpaper to kind of smooth over the edges so that it is a little bit more crisp and smooth, as opposed to being jagged from all the cuts I used that X-Acto knife for. Now I'm going to make the mixed paper journal, which I was so inspired by Maddie from Hello Naya, and I will link Maddie's video below, or the video that I watched below. And I start off with vellum because Maddie used vellum. So I'm just tearing it down and literally copying exactly what she did because I've never done this before, and I had a lot of difficulty with tearing the paper. I don't know what paper you're supposed to use, so if you know, let me know. But yeah, it was really difficult to tear some of the paper, so I just opted to cutting it because I could not rip the paper nicely without ruining it. This one in particular was a little bit easier. I mean, it is disintegrating as I tear, but that's okay. It wasn't too difficult, but the rest of the pages I had such a hard time with it. I think the paper was just too thick and I was tearing against the direction that the fibers were made, so it was a whole thing. So I just opted to cut them down so it doesn't have that torn edge, which sucks, but it's the best that I could do and I was fine with it. Some pages are not within the same template size that I have, which kind of annoyed me, but I'm just using what I have and kind of have to make the best out of the situation. So hopefully it isn't too frustrating when I actually use it. I don't know. It's just trying my hardest to tear everything. By this point, my fingers were literally on fire because it was so difficult to rip paper. I don't know how they make these handmade paper in like handmade papers. They are doing too much. It is literally the hardest thing. And of course, I have to care for my Tamagotchi, who was kind of dying at this point. We're on generation 44 out of 100 for anyone who cares for an update. Again, cutting the pages because I could not tear some of them. That page was so gross. It was so textured. I hated it so much, so I'm glad I didn't use that one. Here you can see some of the pages are just not the correct size, but I still use them anyway just because they had a nice texture to it and I wanted variety. I could literally be eating my words when I start using this insert and hate everything about it, but we're just gonna try, okay? So yes, I'm just arranging all the pages together and trying to place them in a way that each page is a little bit different from the other. I don't want like a stark white page next to something that's too dark to have that extreme contrast. So I'm just arranging everything. And then I realized that this insert is far too thick because I didn't account for the weight of all, like the difference in thickness of all these pages. So I couldn't use every single page that I had cut out, which kind of sucks because I just wasted my time cutting out each page. So yeah, I'm just trying to fiddle around and figure out like the correct layout that I want for this insert, and I think I'm happy with how it looks. So I just start punching holes in it so that I could start threading, and it was so satisfying punching holes into this insert. It was really easy. I could do that all day, honestly. And again, threading it as I've done the previous one in the exact same method, starting from the center and working all the way to one end, back to the center, and down the other end. I had a lot of difficulty with the stitching for both journals just because the needle that I'm using is a thicker width than the holes that I had punched. So that was kind of challenging just because like the holes weren't big enough. I will be getting a proper bookbinding needle just because I plan on binding my own copies of fanfiction this year, so I will need a proper needle. So yes, I hope this is the last time I have to struggle like this for creating my inserts. Yeah, I'm just finishing off the stitching. I actually normally do the knot in the center of the book so that I don't see the knot. But for this insert, I wanted, because was inspired by Maddie, and I wanted to do what she does, which is this cute little bow. She ties such a wonderful bow on her book, and I wanted to do that, but when I did it, it just looked so ugly. So I actually should have watched her video while I was doing this as opposed to relying on my pathetic memory to recall what it was that I had seen. But yeah, definitely, I don't know, maybe I'll try it again. I don't know what I did wrong because when Maddie does it, it just looks so fantastic. And yeah, mine was just rubbish. So I bought that idea and just tie a regular knot in the inside of the book, just like I do normally. But I am going to list Maddie's video in the description, so please watch her. I'm always so inspired by everything that she does, and just like how Maddie feels about Camille, I feel about Maddie because she is truly so inspiring, and I just want to be like her when I grow up. So yeah, this is just me finishing up this insert. I did enjoy it, and I hope that I get to create really beautiful pages with it. It's going to be a little bit more scrapbooking style, So yeah, I'm excited to use it and use some of the Happy Mail in this insert. Here I'm just comparing the thickness between the two, and yeah, I'm quite happy with what I've created. So now the fun part, setting up the actual traveler's notebook. I am just taking out some of the inserts from my black passport. Some I will use, and then others I'm just not going to bother. I will be reusing this clear zipper cover, and the reason for that is the brown cotton zipper cover that I am going to use in the passport. I don't like when the actual zipper hardware indents the leather on the inside, so I am just going to protect the leather against the metal hardware by kind of sandwiching it in between the leather and the zipper cover. If you're not bothered by that, then you can just obviously ignore the additional zipper cover and you'll just use one. I'm just slotting in some of the little bits. I used a journaling card from the B-Sides and Rarities line, and here I'm just wondering if my little Hirono collector card will fit, and I just don't want to use it. I like how everything looks. I've put in my insert and I'm just testing the feel of it. I don't like when the journal is too chunky, but this was perfectly fine for me, and yeah, I like how everything looks. Here I realized that I am just going to put in some of the other elements, so I get my Hirono collector's card as well as a manacled picture from last year's insert. I don't think any book will be complete without one of the manacled pictures in it. And now I realize I forgot to include this clear folder, so I'm just going to do what Job from Job's Journals does, where he uses the bookmark thread and kind of threads that inside the clear folder just to avoid using an additional elastic and adding more bulk to your book. So this is me trying that for the first time. It was a little bit challenging to get the thread through that teeny tiny hole, but worked out in the end. I do like it. Obviously it means you cannot use the bookmark as a bookmark, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. I may, if I hate it, I may just get rid of that idea and have to think of something else. Now I'm just including this little pen clip that I have, and I love how it looks with the color of the camel. I don't love how the pen clip looks with the pen itself, just because the clip on the inner gel just doesn't fit really well. I still don't think I'm going to be using my TWSBI in that pen clip. I feel like it's going to scuff up the pen body. I'm now going to put on the charms, the best part, obviously, and I think I'm going to use the darker thread just so it's a little bit more contrast to the camel of the notebook. And then of course I'm going to use my brand new holiday bear, even though it's not holidays, but I feel like this bear was made for this camel passport and I just love it so much. I've also got an initial charm as well as a little heart that I want to include, and yeah, I'm just working on the orientation of everything, and I like how it looks. I absolutely adore the holiday bear and I'm so glad I finally have it. So yeah, I'm just threading everything in and again struggling as I always struggle. Okay, and yeah, I did it wrong. It was back to front and I kind of didn't like the layout, so I have to redo it. And eventually, I think I did that off camera because that's just too boring, honestly. So yes, now I'm happy with everything. The heart is a little bit further away. I actually don't like the heart. It's the wrong color metal. It doesn't match the other two charms, so I will get rid of it at some point and replace it with a better one once I find a better one. Now I'm just going to set up the black passport. I do want to use both inserts, so I'm going to get the elastic band so that I can put both of the inserts and then have two in one book. I didn't take into account though that the mixed media insert is actually slightly larger than the regular standard, not standard, the regular size of the passport. So there is a bit of a height difference between the two, which I will now realize once I test it out. So it is something that I will have to keep in mind for the future, and I didn't like how that looked, so I reject that idea entirely, and I'm just going to house the mixed paper insert into the black passport and leave it as that. Primarily because I could, at this point, after recording for almost 2 hours, I just could not be bothered. I'm just going to include one of the closing bands for the black passport. I removed all the charms just because I feel like now I just want a clean refresh for these inserts, and yeah, I just didn't want the same thing again because I'm just getting bored of it. And that's the best part about the traveler's notebook system, is it's so customizable and you can change it up literally all the time. So it's just going to be completely plain, and the main focus will be the camel. Yeah, that's basically it. I really enjoyed creating these inserts, and I'm excited to use them and just try different things for this year. Next week's video is going to be a journal with me, and I also want to do a stationery wish list for 2026 and all the little bits that I would like to purchase and add to my ever-growing stationery collection at this point, and also new rubber stamps. So yeah, that's it for this video. I absolutely love the stack that we have going on, and hopefully I see you again next week. Bye!